I call this story Yanomami Love Potion number 9. Among the Yanomami, sexuality is a very curious thing because in many ways they're teenagers and they're just like us, but they also have all other cultural differences. And one of the cultural differences, they don't have clubs or discotheques or internet to meet each other. So typically the way they meet each other is either women are stolen in raids, and quite often the girls will talk and say, well, she's not very good looking. Nobody wants to steal her. But I'm beautiful and everyone wants to steal me. So there's a cultural difference in it. But the common way, if you're madly in love with a woman to get her, is to go to a medicine man, to go to a hikora, and get a love potion. A love potion that they make out of these very special plants. And what the Yanomami do is they make the love potion and you find the girl that you're in love with and you run up to her and you blow it in her face. And the next day she feels very sickly and bad and not so good at all. And then the day after that, she starts to think about you. And all she can do is think about you. All she can do is think about who you are. So when she sees you, she falls madly in love with you. Well, I found a medicine man, or hikoro, who was known to make the very best love potion. And Nelson and Francisco convinced me that we must have a love potion made, and we're going to take it back to Port Ayacucho and put it in cologne bottles and put it on handkerchiefs. And the most beautiful women of Port Ayacucho, we're going to offer them the handkerchief. And when they smell it, they will fall madly in love with us. So we went back to Port Ayacucho, and Nelson got the cologne and poured it in. Now, both Francisco and Nelson swear that it worked. I didn't really partake in this situation, although the whole thing was hysterically funny for me because both of these guys, one was recently separated, the other one had been divorced for a while. So they were both looking for romance. And they did meet women, but were these women, did they ever say to us, oh, all I could do is think about you after I felt sick like the Yanomami did? But to this day, both Nelson and, of course, Francisco's are gone, but to his death, Francisco always swore that the Yanomami love pusano really works. Love potions among the Yanomami. And, of course, the other aspect of Yanomami sexuality that has always been fascinating to me is because they have no Judeo-Christian concepts, they have an incredible innocence about them. So although everybody is naked in the village, the women have this delightful way of how they walk and cross their legs and sit that they really, even though they're naked, they never expose themselves. And I always thought there was a certain shyness about them to this. But in personal relationships, nothing is beyond their limits. I had this image that indigenous people in the jungle only had sex in doggy style, in front to back positioning. But I found out with the Yanomami and with the Piaroa that they were very aware of oral sex and all kinds of other sexual aspects. And of course, they had crazy stories about all of it, but they were actually very strangely timid, yet very sexual people in the way that the Yanomami typically marry one person and they're, that's it. They don't fool around. But typically in the villages, if you go to the gardens at night, everybody's running off and having trysts in the garden. And the big fear is that it's in the garden where there are a lot of snakes. So most people that get bit by snakes are actually off having out of wedlock, you could say, sex with someone else in the garden. And these are some of the strange aspects of magic and sexuality among the tribes and people of the forest. Totehive.